Hails and welcome to Rauta's Underground Trio episode. Once again, we have three different bands from the underground, all metal obviously. These are gotten for free from the bands or labels respectively. As always, I'm not paying for these, so these need to be mentioned. So first, let's do this in alphabetical order and then worst to best according to my opinion. First, 66Crusher from Norway, progressive thrash. Then Rotten Coffin from Portugal, death metal. And then again Norway with a band called Sovereign Alternate Realities, death thrash if you will. Then from worst to best, and let's unbox them. Now this time the order between the two first ones was very tight. I mean, basically I could go in a different order, but you have to choose the right order in order to make it worst to best. So this time the first one goes to Portugal with this debut album by Rotten Coffin, The Agony in Slumber. Now this is, as you can see, very simple digipack. No lyrics, no booklet whatsoever. Picture of four guys in a band, then a CD, and that's pretty much of it. Seems like some kind of a budget solution to me, but I guess it doesn't matter when the music is of course first and foremost. This is very much like our first demo release by a lot of bands. Obviously this sounds pretty okay in terms of production and you have more than demo worth of material here, but you know, the basic thing that seeps through the cracks and all is very demo-ish output in so many ways. So it's more like, let's do our first death metal album and let's put a lot of kind of a basic death metal ideas, let death metal growling, and let's boil it. What it comes out is pretty okay to listen, but also pretty forgettable album in terms of old school death metal. While there is no fundamentally running wrong, I mean, all the riffs make sense in the, sense of being a death metal album, and the growl vocals and the production, nothing really here goes wow. What I'm trying to say here is this is why it sounds very demo-ish. All the ideas here are so basic that it's pretty much like 30 years late, or more like 40 years to be fully honest. I'm saying this because a lot of these second wave death metal ideas, they came to fruition already in the early 90s. By mid 90s, the whole scene was flooding with similar bands as this or similar albums, and nothing really was, making peak impact unless you really had killer songs, in which case, of course, eyebrows were moving and people were like, take my money. But what happens in 2025, this album is a little bit older than that, is that you've heard similar albums million times before. So unless you're a hardcore fanatic finding your next bronze level death metal act nobody is talking about, I mean, you can pretty much skip it. Then again, if you are a hardcore death metal fan and you really want to know each and every possible album coming from the scene, unless it's a really bad one, then give it a go. Like I said, nothing fundamentally wrong here. It's very easy to listen, but unfortunately it's also that easy to forget about it and just move on to better ones. Let's hope the next album will be better. This time the album is too demo-ish to really make better impact than that. Now, 66Crusher has probably the worst name of a band I've seen for a while. I mean, this kind of a name doesn't, make you go, hi, that's very interesting. I mean, if Rotten Coffin sounds like unimaginative and not the most memorable name, what do you think about when you see album like 66Crusher? I mean, it's not even 666 Crusher, but hey, we're missing a number here. Let's do an album. This is album number 4, Limbo, from these Norwegian guys. And their style is described on Metal Archives as progressive thrash metal. It kind of fits because there are lots of thrashier ideas, but if you would call it thrash heavy metal or heavy metal with progressive ideas, that could really go well too. Because the thing here is, a lot of these ideas are indeed more like heavy metal with a twist. Then again, like I said, there are lots of ideas, lots of songs, riffs, whatever, which are very thrashy by nature. So whatever box you choose to go with, I mean, it doesn't matter. Production-wise, this is quite a killer, so much better than the Rotten Coffin. I mean, production-wise, this is like, hey, we are really pro, we know what we're doing and all, and I like it. And that's why, partially that is, this is before that in ranking here. So a tad bit better. So, songwriting-wise, this is a little bit of an up and down, hit and miss, because while there are lots of really nice ideas in terms of riffs and all, sometimes the execution just fails you. Not big time, but worth mentioning. What I'm saying here is, it's more like, hey, you get enthusiastic about, this riff is so great, I really like it and all, and then there's like, why is this idea here? Why they are now incorporating clean vocals here while a while ago was something different? So to me, it's a kind of a weird combination, which is probably more an acquired taste kind of a thing rather than fully blown like, yeah, let's conquer the world with our progressive thrash. First of all, it's not very technical, so take this progressive as a, something with a grain of salt. Progressive is a matter of speaking a very vague term when we're using it, this kind of stuff. Sure, it doesn't sound like Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, Exodus, Testament, Destruction, Sodom, Creator, or anything like that, but a combination of, different things. And then you have these progressive elements, which means they're kind of a mess. Decent if you're looking for something interesting, but can't really recommend this too much. So, as a best of the pile, we go again to Norway with this band called Sovereign. And mind you, there are plenty of bands with this given name. So, this is something that, it's easy to just, not to confuse with some other bands. I mean, there are plenty of bands with the same name. And as such, it's easy to confuse this with some other bands. So make no mistake when you're looking for this one. Search with the album name Altered Realities in case you're wondering what are you going to do with it. This is a very old school death metal. So while it has some thrashier elements, it's easy to call it thrash death. But to be honest, pretty much you could say it's just old school death metal. Kind of the same vein as early Death, Possessed, and stuff like that. These guys are by no means reinventing anything here. They're pretty much doing the stuff the way that you're like expecting the old school death thrash to be. That is, if you find thrashier elements in old school death metal, I mean, it's something that you're supposed to do with, bands like Possessed, Early Death, and all. Then again, if you just call it old school death metal or death thrash, doesn't really matter. Production-wise, this sounds old as well as the cover is, so it's almost like a retro-ish take in that sense. I think it's a pretty nice album, and it has this old school fierceness and this energy, so it's pretty cool. But it's not really doing anything new here. It's not revolutionizing anything, so it sounds like, yeah, a typical album from back in the days, even though it's very, very modern. But give it a go if you like old school death metal. I think it's worth checking out, even if it sounds like it's a little bit late to the party. Best of the pile for sure, so my recommendation goes to that. As always, the links are provided in the description box, so, check it out, and I hope you like them. Now, off you go. Bye-bye.